Tying up another Carrie Stevens streamer today. This is called the Red Devil. Handsome little fly. I don't know much about the history of this particular pattern or where it got its name from. I just like the blue and the red color on this. This has a shoulder on it. In the original recipe called for a grouse shoulder. I'm not certain. I think it's a rough grouse. I'm not 100% certain. I do not have any, at least that is big enough for a shoulder on a fly this size. So I use some Hungarian partridge on the side. Just a handsome little fly, very typical of a lot of the different streamers that she came up with and she tied. That's the Red Devil. I get started tying. Start the Red Devil with my hook and the vise. This is a Partridge CS15 in a size 4. I want to go ahead and debarb that hook. For thread, I'm starting with a Danville 210 denier in white. The body is a red floss body and I don't want to darken that up. So I'm going to start with a white thread as a base layer to keep that floss nice and bright. I'm going to attach my thread just behind the eye of the hook, run this down the shank, nice touching turns, and to give me a nice base layer of white thread. Take my thread about 3/4 down the hook, 3/4 the length of the hook shank here, and that is where I'm going to stop, and I'm going to put in the silver tinsel that is the tag on this. I'm using a Danville silver Mylar tinsel in a size 10. I'm going to attach this here with the gold side up. I'm going to secure that in here. You could, if you want, and I've done this in other videos, you could wrap all the way down here to just past the point of the hook and then back up and have one single layer of tinsel on here. I'm going to, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this in as a double layer. Really doesn't make any difference because you end up with a nice silver tag on the end of this. It's up to you. Some people prefer the double layer. You don't have to worry about the turns, each turn of tinsel touching as much, and you end up with a nice, solid, smooth silver color to the tag. It really is kind of up to you. I do believe with the Mylar tinsel that it comes out a little bit nicer doing a double layer. But like I said in other videos, I've done many videos where I just do a single layer. I just thought this one, it might be nice to just do a double layer for demonstration purposes. So with my tag tied in, I'm going to put in my tailing material. Tailing material on this is just some red hackle fibers. I'm using this is a whiting American rooster saddle in a red. I'm going to get a couple dozen barbs off this, not a lot. You could, if you wanted to, you could also just use some Schlappen. We're using some Schlappen for the throat on this, and you could use some Schlappen if you want to for the tailing material as well. I'm going to tie this in. I want this to extend maybe about 1/4 of a shank or so past the bend of the hook. That's really about the full length of the wing and everything else that gets tied in. I'm now going to tie in another piece of the Mylar tinsel for my rib. I'm using the same number 10. I'm going to tie that in with the gold side up. I am not running this down the whole length of the body because this is going to be a fishing fly. If I were going to frame this, then I might run that down the length of the body just so that I have a little bit smoother underbody. The body on this is a red floss. I'm using a Danville 4-strand Rayon in red. I'm going to use all 4 strands on this. You do want to get a good 12 inches, maybe 13 inches out here. You don't want to end up in a position where you don't have enough. Again, I'm tying this in. It's not going to be the full length of the body. I'm going to come maybe about halfway down the shank here. Now I'm going to wrap forward. I want to put this in touching turns. This will give me a nice underbody. It'll be nice and smooth. Once I get to the end of the body, I'll go ahead and wrap in the red floss for the body and the tinsel for the rib. Assembled for our red devil, I'm going to change over to my orange thread. The head on the red devil is orange, I should say black with an orange stripe. I'm going to start out putting the orange on here and then put the black stripes on afterward. For the orange thread, I'm using a Uni-Thread 8.0, and this is in a pumpkin color. Don't want a really, and that's just me. I mean, you may prefer to have a brighter orange. You don't know that I'd put in like a fire orange or something like that. I like a little bit more subdued orange on some of these streamers. I'm going to attach my thread, trim away the excess of the white thread and the orange tag there. Clean this up just a little bit. My head space, I'm going to come back down a little bit to the back end of the head here. And I'm going to tie in the belly. For the belly, the Red Devil has some white bucktail in it. I've already cleaned this. I've got maybe, I would cut off about a half a pencil, maybe a third of a pencil in diameter clump of bucktail. You can stack these if you want. I generally don't because I like the more tapered look to it. Once you clean all the shorter fibers out, we'll just go ahead and tie that in. You're going to tie this in same length as the fly all the way back to just, I like to do just short of the tip, or excuse me, just short of the end of the tail. We'll tie that in, securing that right on the underside. And then we'll tie in our throat. Throat on the Red Devil is just some red. I'm going to use some red Schlappen for this. I've got 3 small clumps that I've isolated here for this. I'm going to tie one directly underneath. The 3 different clumps allow me to kind of cover up some thread wraps and materials and things up in the head space. I'm going to tie on my second one. And that just goes right on the side of the hook there. And then my last one's going to go on the opposite side. All of these go down about halfway down the length of the body. And clean this space up just a little bit. Smooth that off. I like to take the hackle fibers here and just kind of pull them down a little bit just to get that throat a little bit more distinct underneath it. Smoothing this space off here, I'll start the wing. First part of the wing is some peacock herl. Carrie Stevens likes to use peacock herl in here or for kind of a underwing. Anywhere from 4 to 6 strands of peacock herl. Generally, you're going to, I just get the strung herl. If all you have is actual feather, that's good enough. You're going to tie this in, same thing as the underbelly. I like to go just a little shy of the very end of the tail. Securing that in, I'll trim away the excess. And again, lashing all that down and smoothing this off for tying in the actual wings. And according to her recipe, the peacock herl is a part of the wing. So I shouldn't say actual wing because this is part of the actual wing. The wing on the Red Devil is a blue hackle, and the recipe states 2 blue hackles flanked by 1 red hackle. And generally what they mean by that when you read that recipe is that you're going to have the 2 blue hackles here sandwiched together like this. So you've got your 2 blue hackles, and then when they say flanked by 1 red hackle, They're talking about one red hackle on each side here. Just a little tip there. So the wing is a blue hackle flanked by a red hackle. The shoulder is a grouse shoulder feather, or in this case, I'm using Hungarian partridge. You can use that as well. And then the cheek of jungle cock. Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing when you're reading the instructions on some of these recipes in terms of what color and what material goes where. So I'm going to trim the ends of that. So I have just a little handle right here to tie in. Getting that right down along, smooth along the hook shank. I'm going to tie in that end. You could refer to it as the butt end of the wing right here. I want to make certain that it's nice and perpendicular to the sides here, that it runs nice and lateral along the body. Taking my other half, I'll tie that in on the other side. Securing that in, I'll take a look. I want to make certain my tips should end up even, at least pretty close to even. The red hackles on this ended up a little bit shorter than the blue. That has to do more with the red hackles themselves. The blue hackles have a narrower profile to them, and the red's a little wider. As you can see, red sticks up a little bit wider here. If I went too long, if I went all the way out to the tips on these, the red hackles would obscure a lot of that blue much more, and it was just a judgment call. The neck that I have has been pretty picked over in terms of the red hackles and getting some that were narrow. Maybe I'll do a video sometime picking out your hackles and what you're looking for in the wings on these streamers, but that's why the red's just slightly, just very slightly shorter than the blue. So with both of those in place, I'm going to clean up the head space here. This is just smoothing all this, covering up all the butt ends, smoothing up the head. You don't want to bulk it up, but at the same time, you kind of have to. If you notice, I have a little bit of a drop right there from the end of the butt ends of the wings that I just tied in, trying to get that tapered down to the eye of the hook that has a nice smooth taper. So with that smoothed off, I want to make certain I've got all of my materials covered up. I don't have any of the butt ends of the wings or the throat or anything sticking out visible through the orange. The other thing is I want to put a nice base layer of orange down so that now when I put the black thread on, the orange has a nice base to it. Trim away my orange thread. The black thread, I'm using a Danville 6/0 in black. It's a 70 denier. I'm going to attach this to the rear portion. I want to divide the head up pretty much into thirds. So I'll have a black band at the rear that's a third, an orange band in the middle that's a third, and a black band in the front that is a third. At this stage, you will just want to be a little bit slower and more deliberate with your thread wraps. You want to put enough on here to get the band on and cover everything up, but you don't want to bulk it up. I'll reattach my black thread up at the very front of the head here. Start to wrap that in, securing that tag end down. I'll trim away the tag, and now I'll finish wrapping in the forward black band. Again, being kind of careful, and you want to make certain you're being a little bit more deliberate here, that you're getting your wraps right where you want them, so you get that nice division between the black, the middle, and the front. I should say the back of the head, the middle, and the front. But you don't want to bulk it up. You don't want the head to end up being, those bands being bulgier. Is that a word? That'd be a correct word for that. Than the rest of the head. I'll put in my whip finish. Now I'm going to put in some head cement, and I use a fly-tight head cement, and it will soak down into these thread wraps. Oops. It'll soak down into the thread wraps real nice and secure that head very, very well. I'm going to come back and put a couple coats of a clear lacquer on there, and that will protect those thread wraps from any toothy critters, or as this is being fished and bumped up against things and whatnot, those thread wraps will have a little bit more protection. I'm not really looking for a real glossy head on this. It's just more, the lacquer's more for protection. So that is the Red Devil, Carrie Stevens pattern, colorful little fly, nice looking handsome streamer. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com, where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. But what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.